So smile at the people around you. Greetings of light. And maybe Peter will open the door now. Now that we have meditated, we return to an open door. Thank you. So, we're on a third of our statements, and I believe it's the most difficult, but it's also the most profound. Our religion is oneness. These are the statements we have chosen for our church here, our center. And so we are with this oneness business. And I really believe that all the good intention and all the good writing and all the good teaching doesn't really get it unless we come from an acceptance that there is a new dimension that has opened up on this planet, that there are like a different kind of human being formed here. People slowly developing, not being better people or more righteous people, but people who are starting to more and more live in that with that line of connection between the human and the divine in themselves. And that creates a new human being. And only from that place in you, practicing that your day, yes, you're living it on the human level, but you are doing it in tandem with your spirit, with your isness. Only from that place of a human that you are, with an acceptance, there is a vertical and a horizontal connection, and you are at the center. Only from there do you begin to grasp what oneness is all about. I have a quote here. When Alexander the Great was a young man, he asked his teacher Aristotle a question. How much is one? Alexander was surprised when his teacher said he would have to think about the question overnight. The next morning, Aristotle gave his answer. One is enough. I mean, we talked last week about putting yourself at the edge whenever you choose to be the kind of human that is a sacred human, you know, the one that is starting to live in both worlds all the time. That human that you become more and more. Are you with me? Yep. That puts you at the edge of what can be. And then I have this lovely story, and I'm going to read it because I don't want to make a mistake about getting it clearly to you. Tell me the weight of a snowflake. A little mouse asked a wild dove. Nothing. Nothing more than nothing, was the answer. In that case, I must tell you a marvelous story, said the coal mouse. I sat on the branch of a fir close to the trunk when it began to snow. Not heavily, not in a raging blizzard, no, just like in a dream, without any violence. Since I didn't have anything better to do, I counted the snowflakes settling on the twigs and needles of the branch. The number was exactly 1,741,952. When the next snowflake dropped onto the branch, Nothing more than nothing, as you had said the mouse to the dove, when the next snowflake settled, the branch broke off. So having said that, the coal mouse fled away. The dove, since Noah's time an authority on the matter, thought about the story for a while and mused. Perhaps there is only one person lacking for peace to come about in the world. Isn't it sweet? The story of one, the concept of one. And the only way I know how to get into this topic more is to go to Jesus. And he was fierce with the Pharisees. He was absolutely fierce with the rabbis and the Pharisees. So I'm going to read to you some of the stuff he said to them and about them. He made it very clear that he came to teach about love and about oneness, not about religion. And in that way, we have the alchemy of a Fillmore who struggled and resisted having churches. He knew that was the last thing the planet needed, was another religion. It needed a teaching of oneness. And for that, we have to be born anew in a way. We have to have clear perceptions. And we talked about the lens through which you look at your life. Because when you invite joy, like Gloria was saying, when you invite light into to the crack of your life, when you invite light in, alchemy begins. You know what alchemy is? The old alchemists who took this element and that element and they created something, woo-woo, gold, whatever, right? It was a transformational happening. Alchemy is about taking elements, bringing them together and creating something different, right? Fillmore was an alchemist. Whatever he gave us, whatever the teaching is, it's supposed to undo and redo you. And my good old teacher Carl Jung, who to me and to many people in unity is the closest psychological framework for what unity teaches spiritually, he called it individuation. We call it soul development. But it's alchemical. When you just visualize this, you're taking a flashlight and you're saying, I'm going to use that flashlight to shine light into my room, into who I am. I'm inviting it in. Because I want to be enlightened, I want to be a spiritual person, I want to be loving. Guess what you see when you bring in light? That's right. That's not bad, but it is shadow. It all that which is your, forgive me to use the word, your karmic story. Whatever you have dealt with or not dealt with, whatever you have resolved, it looks at you. And it's in that moment where the work begins. Because if the work does not happen at that moment when you take the flashlight and you're looking into your room and you're seeing boxes and boxes of unopened stuff or whatever. You ever been to a place where you had stored things for a while, you know? You're looking at it in that moment. In that moment when the work is not done, where I say, either I must work with forgiveness, or I ask grace to help me in this situation because I put this into that box and I don't want to deal with it. Right? You know what happens when you don't do the work? You project it onto the world. That's what projection is about. You see it everywhere. It irritates you left and right. Your projection is energy sent out that comes actually from your energetic self. And so the alchemy is not an easy process. The alchemy is painful. It's challenging. It's making you ask for help, right? And the reason we're coming together is to be supportive of one another. Knowing that I'm sitting with people who are alchemists, who are in the process, who are maybe put through the fire. Sometimes alchemy hurts, right? It's in that alchemical process that we are moving in the direction of what oneness is all about, that it is all one. It is so immensely abstract, right? But I want you to somehow have more of a sense, and it's something I'm trying to do with a little bit of more housekeeping, where I'm asking people to turn off their cell phones, and where I'm asking people not to come in during meditation, is the sanctity of this space when we're coming together to preserve it for one another. Because we're all in an alchemical process. There's a lot going on out there that can trigger you projecting. All you have to do is turn on the television and you are in full projection mode. I want to say something that I heard this morning, because I want to pass it on to you because it really hit me. This person was talking about, was obviously an American Democrat, so forgive me about that piece. But anyway, he was talking about when Obama was elected and he won the presidency. And those of us who saw a young black man being president of the United States, and we, on the spiritual path, we thought something's really going to happen here, right? We were really on fire, ignited, delighted. We thought that he's going to change America, right? Well, then this person said, yes, he did things, but what he really set up is the coming of Trump. There's a reaction to the reaction to the, and that's again alchemy. We cannot forget that this and this is part of life, and one sets up the other. And probably after Mr. Trump, there's going to be another somebody who we think ideally, maybe it's a woman, right? But on this planet, we are in a dualistic world, and we have to learn. And it really hit me this morning. I'm thinking, can I see it in a bigger way? That all the hopes that I had pinned on Obama that didn't come about, that the formation, you know what I'm talking about, of setting up all that which we projected onto Obama, and it didn't come all true, right? And the negativity that comes from that. Well, he didn't fulfill what we thought he should, right? And in a lot of people, a lot of Americans, they got into the other side of their thinking and said, we need somebody completely different. So we have 50% of Americans who want, a reality TV show. All right, so you know where I'm standing. So this concept about oneness, I think if we can just say, let us be more aware of the gift of coming together. There is something in this congregation that could benefit so much from treating this as a sacred space, that when you walk in, your voice gets quiet. When you walk in, you come to pray. It's not because of the chairs in the building. It's because we need this kind of sanctity. Once a week, once a day, to be in the presence of something that we have declared is sacred. And this gets me back to Jesus. He told the Pharisees, because at that stage of the Jewish teaching were all these rules, and depending on how much you gave, and depending on how many rules you fulfilled, you were in good standing. And Jesus said none of that is of value. It's not the gold with which you build your temple. It's the altar, the sacredness. So I feel I would love to wake up in us, here in Unity of Montreal, more of a sense of the sacredness of this. Look around. Keys painted it. Reverend May Duncan built this stained glass window. And for a moment, take that thought, I'm on a journey of exploring oneness. And oneness is alchemical. There is no way around it. If I have to put my head around Obama led up to Trump, and Trump led up, you know what I mean? If I have to do this, that this is finally part of oneness, these aspects. Then I can look at my own aspects that are not integrated, or my own aspects that are not completed. They need to come into the fold, right? Are you with me about thinking yourself as an alchemical or an alchemist? You are not just putting 2 and 2 equals 4. You're making 2 and 2 equals 5. You're on a journey by a founder, the name of Fillmore, who set you on a course that is very radical, if you really mean it. This whole teaching of Fillmore was, he believed that you could make, out of elements, you could make something else. He really believed in it. And Jung believed that in the integration of the light and the dark, the light and the shadow, and the real work on that, instead of pushing it away, of welcoming it in, bringing it into your oneness, that's what individuation is all about. Do you know what the word religio translates?
What's that word again?
Religion, the Latin word religio, binding together. Individuation, not one part of you shall be disowned. Or it will appear in your environment looking at you through somebody else. Isn't it true? By now, when I look at you, you must know what I'm talking about, but you also must feel a compassion for one another. Right? It's not always easy to be compassionate when you are in a collective. But for a moment today, the two things I want you to take with you for your alchemical process. One is that there is sanctity here present, and you're participating by you being here, and for us to really honor it. And the other one is to behold in your heart, with some compassion, the others. You might not know who they are. You might not know what's going on with them. But you can bet something's going on in their life where they're working. And maybe where they could use some help. And the help can be received on being in a collective that prays together. Give me a nod, Sandra. She knows what I mean. Okay. If you want to read up on what Jesus said, go to Matthew 23. It's a long chapter. And he is so clearly telling the Pharisees and the rabbis off. And then we went ahead and we made a religion out of it, right? But we do have a teaching. We do have a teaching that puts you on course, that has you. And that is what brings me, people every once in a while, actually somebody asked me yesterday, what do I tell people when they ask me what does unity teach? And, I always, of course, having been, a psychotherapist at one point in another life, I always first look at who is asking, right? It depends on who is asking for my answer. But I always begin with, it is not a religion. It's an invitation to a spiritual life. It's very, very gentle in its teaching, in its non-dogmaticness. But when it has hold of you, when individuation has hold of you, it will not be gentle. It's radical. And some of us have really had the experience of thinking that we're done with one lesson and then it comes right back. Maybe this time that it comes back, I'm quicker to catch it and to do something with it. We use the teaching to do something with it instead of walking around projecting out. Projections doesn't necessarily mean negative perceptions of people. Projection, one of the biggest projections is depression. Never thought about that, huh? Sadness. That's internal talks, internal memories, internal drama, and instead of having dealt with it, it's occupying you, right? It's right here, right? You ever been depressed? So anyway, enough of that. Our oneness, there's a lovely anecdote with Mahatma Gandhi. Somebody was visiting him, and as they entered his living room, on the wall was a picture of Jesus. So this person was quite shocked and said, how you come you got this Jesus hanging? You're a Hindu, right? He said, and his answer was, I am a Christian, I am a Muslim, I am Hindu. He got it, right? In that sense, he went right above any religious affiliations. I don't know if the person understood what he meant, but... So, are you thoroughly zonked out and bewildered? That's another thing. Alchemists like being confused. When you think you know the answers, that's very pa. Alchemists like to watch what comes. You follow me? Instead of being in a knowing place of, I know what's wrong with me, is to walk out of here and say, I'm open, grace has entered, I've been among my fellow journeyers, and now I'm going to watch. And whatever catches my attention first is what I'm to work on. All right.